Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So good evening once again. This is group 4. We are working on anthropometric analysis. So, like I said, I'll start with the introduction of the topic, anthropometric analysis. Anthropometric analysis is the study of the measurement of the human body in terms of dimension that has to do with the bone, the muscle, the tissue, and other body parts. It is defined to deal with dimension, the body size, the shape, the strength, and working capacity for design purpose and body composition. However, Dawal et al. 2012, Shiro and Abubakar 2012, Majuda 2014 measured substantial tissues that are important because human beings are with large values and are reported to have increase in hypertension, adult diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and other ailments. However, anthropometric analysis deals with the measurement of height, the weight, the head circumference, and also the body mass index, amongst others. However, this has to do with measurements around the waist, the hips, and the limbs. Also, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, anthropometric analysis are used for valuable assessments of nutritional status in children and adults. This tells us that anthropometric analysis, as we know, deals with the interaction between humans, the humans and the environment, and also the humans and the workplace, to mention but a few. Thank you very much. We'll be moving on to the literature review that has to do with the historical development of anthropometric analysis. Chapter 2.
Okay. For the anthropometric history, I'll be going through discussing on where and who developed anthropometric. So looking through, the anthropometry has actually been in existence since the 19th century. It was developed by Alfonso Bertillon. Alfonso Bertillon was actually a son of a doctor who was the founder in the Society of Anthropology of Paris. And what were part of the things that gingered and made him wonder and try to find out what anthropometry is. Like we have said earlier in our chapter 1, anthropometry is basically the science of obtaining measurements of the human body. So for Alfonso Bertillon, who was the one who discovered anthropometry, what made him discover this? By the time he started his working career, he was working in a Paris police force. And as he was working there, he discovered that during his career, they used to have a challenge in knowing the criminals, or if new people come into the prison, or the people in the prisons, if they have committed an offense, if it's their first time or their second time. They were unable to do this thing because the prisoners were also getting very, very smart and outsmarting the people on duty by using nicknames. Because in those times, what used to happen was in the prisons or in the criminal places, what they do is that when you commit an offense, they note your name in alphabetical order. So criminals, being criminals of who they are, being very smart people, they decided sometimes they will use aliases or nicknames and confuse the officers in charge. It was all these things that troubled and bothered Alfonso Bertillon that made him start thinking of, okay, what are the easier ways for us to be able to identify these people? These were part of the things that made him start discovering and finding out that, okay, he could find out a group of people, maybe measure, because he found out that once someone is up to 20 years and above, you have a fixed bone density by the time you get to like age 20. So those are part of the things that engineered his thoughts and thought process that made him decide that, okay, if we can measure people and see how people from a particular age to this age, we can now decide, instead of coming to put people in different names, you can have them segmented as small, medium, and large. And from that way, they were able to streamline and be able to find out new people that come into the prison facility, and also be able to find out people that have committed offenses more than once and be able to beat out them. So these are kind of the things that made them think of bringing up anthropology. Anthropology is also a science that also made it easy. Like today, we sit down in our offices and you find out that, how have you wondered why it is that at a particular time, maybe your office chairs, they're at a particular level. No matter how, if you're fat, if you're slim, if you're tall, if you're short, you want to sit down on your office chair, you are comfortable. It's the science of anthropometry that has helped to do all these things, because what they do is they carry a range of people, find out from their head, their body circumference, and their measurement, be able to get things like office desks, even the cars today. Have you wondered how come a particular car, once someone sits in the car, either if you're tall or if you're short, you're comfortable. Anthropometry is part of the science that helps us to discover all these things. I'll just briefly go to some of the tools that we speak about. Like, the tools for anthropometry that we use are things like the weighing scale to the measuring tapes. We have the skin fold calipers, we have the gonimeters, we have the pressure mapping systems. They're just body scanners. All these things were things that when he discovered, also used, if we check as far back as the 1800s, that's the 19th century, you find out that the science of anthropometry also helped civilization in places like Greece, in places like Rome, even in down in Africa, in places like Egypt. We find out that some of our artworks and all those things, it was the science of anthropometry that was used. You can remember the very famous painting of Da Vinci Code. It's anthropometry that was used to do all those things, to be able to get like the size of how people were in those times, the 18th and 20th century. It was even helpful as far back to be able to find out where they had like some North American immigrants. Those ones were very, very short. With that, the science of anthropometry also helped them to be able to know the right diet and all to give people coming from those areas. So in summary, this the history and what and the tools that have been used and the data that has also been given are things that have helped to engineer and bring up things like we said earlier, our cars, our work tools. It's just also in very rare cases that affirmation is used for exceptional cases. Let me say in an issue where they need to do like artificial hands and legs for people ahead. It's also the size of anthropometry that also helps in preparing all those things. In a nutshell, it's used for where they have a huge group of people to use an average of the body measurements of those people to be able to work with science and create technology and things to make life easy and make things better. It's also known as the Bertillone science or so, and that is also from the name of Mr. Alphonse Bertillon that brought about the science. He was born in 1813 and he died in 1914. So we thank him for bringing appometry, and we thank God that till today we are enjoying what the science of appometry has brought to humankind. Thank you. So you can look through the slide. It's showing you all the things that have through measurements and all the different tools in place that can be used to check your body measurements. These are the measuring tapes that can be used to check your head circumference, can be used to check your thighs. This is the head spinner and all.
So, chapter 3, we're going to be looking at the exposure factors. This actually means what factors exactly we use account for. We'll be looking at structural measurements such as the height, the weight, the body mass index of the human being. Now, these are core elements of anthropometry. Remember, in anthropometry, we're dealing with human beings. Exposure factors, we're looking at the tools account for the height, the weight, the head circumference, the body mass. In summary, we are looking at the height, the weight, the body mass index, gender, and the age. That's for the exposure factors. That's what we're looking at. So beyond this, we're also going to look at the body regions. Which area of the body are these tools we mentioned, the measuring scale, the standometer, the anthropometric chair? What areas of the body are these tools relevant to? Now, there's so much to be looked out for. So I'll just mention a few, and then the slide contains so much more of them. Most of those tools we analyze, validated tools, are relevant to almost all the parts of the body. So we can look at the head height, the height of the head, the length and the width, the head shape, the sitting and standing height, the eye socket, the eye-to-eye gap, the nose, the sinus cavity. These things were used for various things in those days to expose criminality and all that. So it's not only segregated to one particular area. So we're going to look at the waist breadth, the elbow breadth, the top, the thigh circumference, arm length, upper length, knee height, stomach size, genitals, the brain size, cerebral hemisphere, skin thickness, skin folds, the body fat percentage, the waist to hip ratio, and all of that. So there are a lot of body. In fact, it expands almost the head, the whole body, but it depends on what exactly we're working on for the tools we choose or to use. So we're going to move on to some of the tools we talked about and some of their specific areas. For example, the body, the weighing scale. The weighing scale looks at your body mass. The stadiometer looks at the head to the beam, knee to beam, waist to knee, and all of that. Then the measuring tape deals with circumferences, the waist circumference, head circumference, thigh circumference, bicep circumference, hip to limb length, and a lot more. Then the skin fold caliper looks at the stomach, the biceps, the thighs, the calves, just to mention a few. Then the anthropometric chair, the thigh, the knee, the eye, the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, the elbow to limb, the sitting spine angle, and just to mention a few. So every other thing we have is contained. You can look through the slides, we'll get much of the information we'll be looking for. So we can progress to the limitation.
Thank you very much for that. I guess we should move to chapter 5 now.
Okay, so
Yes, you have the floor.
okay, so the limitations. Yeah, you get to know the things that could cause lapses or that could make you not have accurate results. That's what they call the contraindications. So anthropometric measurements, they are not invasive. So we have generic examples like during illness, health illness or injury, you might not be able to like probably stand or this thing because of your health. So that could give inaccurate measurements. You have illness of trained competent tools or equipment personnel, inadequate maintenance of tools, defective tools, when the tools is contaminated, when the tool or equipment is not suitable, ethnicity or racial beliefs. Imagine somebody that is well covered is unable to remove it or covering to get some specific measurements. You don't have accurate results. Let's move down to the specific ones that we're looking at. Yes, the weighing scale. The limitations we have are avoid using the weighing scale when it is effective. It is not appropriate for use when zero error calibration error is observed. External materials should not be attached or inclusive when taking measurements of an individual. Do you know? Avoid using the electronic weighing scale when the battery is low. Then the second one, standiometer, cannot measure accurately the height of a person that is not standing well. There's a specific position you should be in when you're using the equipment. It is not appropriate for use when a part is defective. It is not appropriate when the individual is having when the individual taking the measurement to wear a footwear. Lack of technical know-how. The third one, avoid using the measuring tape when it's defective. When probably we have some measurements out, some numbers out, avoid using it. You'll not be able to get accurate results. Skin foot caliper. Lack of technical know-how. Defective caliper. When the caliper reading on the equipment have faded, making it difficult to read parameters. The last one, the anthropometric chair. Defective or faulty chair. Avoid using when it's defective or faulty. When your position is on upright, if you have to lie down on this, you cannot use the anthropometric chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to chapter 6. This has to do with when to use the equipment appropriately.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be taking us through chapter 6, that is when to use this tool. We're going to be providing examples. First on the list is the weighing scale, which is used for documenting the profile data of a new employee on a job, and also taking the pre-employment medical examination of a person. It also has its application in the medical industry, where it is used to monitor the weight loss and weight gain of a person. It's also used to get the level of fitness of a person, the nutritional balance of an individual. It's also used by pediatricians to measure babies' weights and doctors to check for the weight of pregnant women. It also has its application in the aviation sector, where it is used to check for the weight of our bag and baggages before we board our flights. Now, secondly, we have the stadiometer, which is basically used to check for the height of a person. So it has application for getting a passport or doing passport registration. Height is one of the things that are required, so we use stadiometer to get that. It's also used to check for the height of individuals for BMI calculation during diagnostics in the medical faculty or facility rather, and also used to check for the height of footballers. Also for soldiers, as height is one of the major requirements during recruitment of soldiers in the military. And thirdly, we have the measuring tape. So measuring tape basically used to get dimensions to measure newly recruited individuals, not to design their uniform, overall and clothes, and it's also used to design clothes of clients in the fashion industry. And also, it is used to check for the surface dimension of an object, and also to measure parts of the human body, to get the circumference of the human body, the length of baby and adult, the circumference of the stomach. Then we have the skin fold caliper, which is basically used to check for the obesity of the skin of a human. So examples are to check for the stomach fat of a person, the skin fat of a person, and all that. And it's best to use before any form of physical activities. And lastly, we have the anthropometric chair. It's also used for data acquisition during recruitment of an individual, and it is used to get the body dimensions of a physically challenged person when you want to design a wheelchair. for a physically challenged person. It is also used to design to get measurements to design an ergonomic chair, office chair, and also an ergonomic vehicle seats. So when we want to construct or design such kind of chairs or seats, we use the anthropometric chair to get this design. And if we go below on page 28, we see pictures on how these tools are being used. The first picture there, we have the stadiometer, how it's being used. The second picture on page 29, we have the measuring tape, used to take the dimension of a baby. Then we have the weighing scale, which is used to check for the width of a baby and so on. So you can see its application. And we have the measuring length to check for the length of a baby's skin foot caliper, to check for the skin fats. So you can see the application. It's just like it's actually a clip which is used and a gauge which is used to measure the body fat of an individual. So these are some of the applications or uses of these tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So now we understand what the purpose of anthropometric analysis does for the human interaction with the environment and the workplace. So based on our findings, we can see below the references where we source all the information for this research. And basically, I'll say thank you to everyone for participation and collaboration to achieve this project. So we can look through the references to gain more insight on anthropometric analysis. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No questions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you have questions, please, you have the floor. You can just unmute and ask your questions.
Or you have more contributions to help the group.
Contributions,
Anything
please.
that we need.
Let's get contributions.
Okay, good evening, all.
Anyone?
Yeah, Obuji Onos on the line.
Speak louder.
Oh no, Bugapo. That's justice.
All right, you have the floor, sir.
Okay, so first of all, I really want to appreciate you guys. Wonderful and apt presentation. Just an observation from my own end. During the course of presentation, I noticed that Madam Ifoma, so she was like giving the things she wanted to talk about, like I will be presenting on. So I don't think there will be need for all of those. Like
More contributions, please. Yes, contributions. Or does anybody have questions, suggestions? Okay, please, can we all unmute? I mean, for your videos, I'd like us to see each other's faces. We have been having several meetings without identifying each other.